Okay, so this is a reference tutorial. We'll be going over this in class, but it's a reference tutorial for you to look at. I'll also have a PDF of the levels, their names, and their elevation for you to also reference. But this is really simple. So on the left side of the screen, I have my uh, template that I work from. And on the right side of the screen is essentially what I would hope that you would see when you open up your project for the first time. So we'll be walking through opening up the project and using the architectural template as our base template for our model. But when you open it up, you should see this. And you notice that we have, now of course I'm speaking about this in the class, but so I'm being very general here, but we have our project browser and our properties. Our properties are here. Those are the properties of whatever you've selected. So if I select level 1, it'll tell me the properties of level 1. If I just click in the white space, then it's going to tell me the properties of this building elevation, which happens to be the east elevation. So over in the project browser, you can see it's bold. So it's telling me that that's the active view right now. And generally, when you start out a project from the architectural template, you'll have these two levels set up for you originally. And I went to the east elevation just so that I can fix this. So if you come over to the left side here, this is the template that I start out with, and I want you to try to duplicate that. So we'll talk about it in class. We'll be doing this live, but I'm making a tutorial just so that you can take a look at it. Either start this ahead of the class, the first class, or you can look at it while we're in class if this helps you out. But of course, I'll be there live to help you out as well. So the first thing we want to do is create the grade because that's at level 0. So the easiest thing to do is simply say, click on level. I like to work with capital letters. Architects like capital letters, so it'd be better if you capitalize this. And I'm just going to call it grade. Okay. And now I've duplicated. And it's asking me, do I want to rename the corresponding views? And that would be over here. So it was level 1. Notice it's level 1 up here. When I say yes, look what happens. It changes the corresponding view name to grade, which is fine. So when we want to look at the floor plan at the grade level, we would simply click on grade, and that would show it to us. Now, the next thing I have is level 2, and we can make that the anything. We have to duplicate these things. So we'll say that level 2 is the top of the first floor wall. Okay, so I will change the name of that. We can type TO, or we can put T period O period, but TO stands for top of first floor wall. Okay, and again, do we want to rename it? So all right, now level 2 is called level 2. When I say yes, level 2 becomes top of first floor wall. And we'd like to keep this as small as possible. I wouldn't recommend that you type TOP space OF space FIRST space FLOOR space WALL, because it just makes it way too long. So I've abbreviated it to the point where when I look at this, I know exactly what the level is, and hopefully you will as well. So if we take a look and say the top of first floor wall is supposed to be 12 feet 0 and 5/8, but it's only 10 feet. So there's a couple ways that we can change that. So let's do it the hard way, first of all. So we would just type 12 feet 0 space 5/8. So if you're used to working in AutoCAD, AutoCAD generally thinks you're telling it inches. In Revit, Revit believes that you're telling it feet. So we really don't have to type the foot symbol generally, but in this case, I think it makes sense to do that. And so now I have top of the first floor wall, 12 feet 0 and 5/8. That's what I wanted it to be. That's what it is. Okay. So now let's put in another level, which will be the second floor. Okay. So I know that the second floor is a foot away from the top of the first floor wall. So I'm going to click on the level. And Revit thinks that I might want to modify that, so it automatically puts up the modify ribbon. And I do want to modify it. In fact, I want to copy it, so I'm going to go over to the modify tab, which should be activated automatically when I click on the level. But if it's not, we just click on the modify tab. And then we go over here to copy. And then we've already selected the object. We can click anywhere on the screen. I'm using the mouse to simply show the direction I want to copy it. And I will use the keyboard to tell the distance. So I'm using the mouse. I want to move it straight up, and I'll just type the number 1, and Revit just copied that level up 1 foot. So now that's going to be the second floor, but it's getting a little messy here. So what we want to do is I want to grab this end of the top of the first floor and just drop it down. So if I click on that, if I click on this level, we should be able to see in here somewhere. I should have done this first. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to delete this level, and I'm going to click on this guy. Now I can see what I was looking for, which is this little squiggly. I call it a cedilla. I think squiggly is probably more appropriate. And I click on that, and that just drops it down a little bit. Okay, so you see that, drop that down. If I wanted to drop it down more, I can click on it and drag it down if I want to do that. But we'll leave it approximately there for now. So now again, I'm going to do this over. Click on the object that I want to move. Automatically went to the modify tab, which gave me the modify ribbon. And I'm just going to say move, which is this icon. And I can click anywhere on the screen. I'm using my mouse. As long as I go straight up, that's the direction I want it to be. I don't want to move it. That's my mistake again. I'm going to click on this. I want to copy it. And so now I'm going to do the same thing. Click anywhere on the screen. I'm using the mouse to show the direction that I want to move the object, and I use the keyboard to tell it the distance. So now I have my new level, which is called level 4. I'm going to make it the second floor. So I'm going to type 2NDFL, or I could type FLOOR, but you know, I can tell what that's supposed to be there. And so now I can see that I have my second floor in there. And now I want top of the second floor wall to be 8 foot 0 5/8 away from this level. So now I have to start doing math. And so instead, I'm just going to copy it again, copy it straight up, not worry about the number. And this way, I'm going to actually put a dimension line in there, which is down at the quick access toolbar, which either resides above your ribbon, which is up here, or by clicking this little guy here, you can put it below the ribbon. And I like it below the ribbon, so that's your personal preference, whatever you get used to. So let's assume I didn't know what the level elevation was actually going to be, but I knew the distance that I wanted it to be was 8 foot 0 5/8. So I'm going to click on this little dimension buddy here, click here, and then click out in space where there doesn't select an object. Because if I click on top of an object again, it's going to think that I want a dimension to there. So that we don't want a dimension that way. So I'll delete that. Back over to the dimension icon. I'm just going to click here, and then make sure that I click somewhere in space so that that's going to locate the dimension line, but it's not going to click on another object, because if it clicks on another object, Revit believes that I'm asking it to dimension to that other object. So we try to find a void space or a blank space and click right there. So I hit escape on the keyboard. You can see that I don't have any icon attached next to my mouse cursor. And I'm simply going to click on this level, and that activates this dimension. And I'm going to write 8 foot 0 5/8 in that. Click on there and say 8 feet 0 space 5 8, enter. And now 21 foot 1 1/4, it automatically changes the level appropriately, because it's making the object that I clicked on. I'm telling Revit that I want to change this dimension, and the way that I want that dimension to be changed is by moving the object that I've clicked on. So a lot of times people will click on this dimension and think that they can change that, but if you understand that Revit wouldn't know. how do you want to change that dimension? Do you want to move this line or do you want to move this line? So with Revit, when we click on the object first, then Revit knows that this is the object that you want to move, and you can change the dimension to whatever you want it to be, and it will change the dimension by moving the object that you've dimensioned to. So again, I click on the object, click, then it activates the dimension, and I'm going to type that 8 feet 0 space 5/8, and I get my correct. I don't need that in there right now. I'm going to delete it, and then I'll come up here, and this is supposed to be the top of the second floor wall, so I'll change that to TO 2NDFL wall. Let's see what it says. Top of second floor wall. Okay. So we're gradually starting to build those in as we want it. Now I have my grade. I want a first floor, which is 2 feet above the grade. So I'll click on the grade, come up to copy, and click anywhere on the screen now. I see a lot of my students think that they have to actually click on the object. You don't. And sometimes it's easy to click on the object, but other times it's difficult to select that. So I would prefer that you get in the habit of simply clicking outside of it and then using your mouse to show the direction. We said it's 2 feet higher. And so now I can see that little squiggly there. And maybe I want to pull this guy up this time. The elevation is correct, but the name is wrong. So I click on the name, and I'm just going to say first floor. Okay, so now I have my first floor in there as well. So what else do we have to do? Okay, so I'm going to have a garage. So a garage has a footing. It doesn't have a basement underneath it. It just has the slab of the garage generally sits on the ground. So in this case, to make it simple, we're not going to put a garage underneath. We're not going to put a basement underneath your garage. We're simply going to put the garage slab right on the ground. So we have footings instead of a full depth all the way down to where the basement wall is. It just has to go below the frost line. And we'll explain the frost line, or I'll be explaining the frost line a little bit more in class. This is really just a tutorial on how to get your levels in here. So the next level is 3'6" below the grade. So again, I can click on this level, say copy, and click anywhere, use the mouse to show the direction, and type 3'6", boom. And now that should be, something went wrong here. So apparently I didn't copy it straight down. So I could delete it and start over again. And if you're getting paid by the hour, that's the way to do it. If time doesn't matter to you, if you have all the time in the world, if you have your laundry done and your food cooked for you and the grocery shopping done and you don't have a job and you don't have any other classes, then the way to do it with time not being an issue for you is to simply delete that and start over again. But you can also simply click on the number and say you want it to be minus 3'6", and we change it that way. So that would be a much more efficient way to do it in terms of your time. But of course, it's up to you. I see a lot of students, they make a mistake, and then instead of just modifying that mistake, for example, in this case, changing the dimension of the level, they delete it and start all over again. It's not the best habit to get into. And if you're actually working in an office and your superior, your supervisor or the owner of the company is watching you do that, looking over your shoulder and watching you do that, they're not going to be happy about it. So it's not a good habit to get into. Anyway, we want to change the name of this. So I'm going to click on it until it allows me to select the level. There we go, level 7. Notice that I had a hard time selecting that. So there's another way to do that. I'm going to click on just the level and come over here to my properties box and change the name over here. So I don't have to worry about trying to select it. And if I'm having trouble selecting it, I can change it over in the properties box. And that is just going to be BOGARFTG. So bottom of garage footing. And apply that. And now I've got my bottom of garage footing. Okay, so we're getting there slowly but surely. We're adding all of the levels that we want to get in there. So the next level is going to be the basement floor. And what do I know? Well, I guess I'll just have to use the number here. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this guy down some random distance, not worried about it. Okay, I'll change the name of it first. I'm going to call that the bottom of the basement wall is the one we'll do first. BOBSMT Okay, so now that's my bottom of my basement wall. That's my level that's in there. But I only want it to be minus 8 feet, 11 and a half. So this is another feature. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to Control C. I'm copying that number, and then I'm coming over here and Control V. I'm pasting it in there. Okay, so there are a lot of times when we're working on a project and we have an odd number, might be 11/64 or 37 130 seconds or something like that. So it's a good habit to get into when you can copy and paste the number. That helps. This is a unique situation because I really have it already drawn on the left-hand side. This is a different project. This is my project starting from my template, and then this should be your project, which starts from just having 2 levels. So I've got my bottom of the basement wall. I've got my bottom of the garage footing. I've got my grade in there. I don't have the top of the basement wall, so let's put that in there. And that is, I'm going to copy this guy down, okay? And I'm going to change the name right here, which we're going to say is the top of BSMT WALL. So now it's the top of the basement wall. And I can change it right here to 10.5 inches. Okay, so it's going to be 10.5 inches above the grade. I'll just type it right here, 10.5 inches. If I didn't put the inches in there, Revit would have thought it was 10.5 feet. So this is getting a little messy here. I'm going to unlock it and just drag it out a little bit farther so we can see all of the things that we have there. So what have I got? Top of the second floor wall, check. Second floor, check. Top of first floor wall, check. First floor, check. Top of basement wall, check. Grade, check. Bottom of garage footing, check. Basement wall, check. Got everything except for the basement floor. Now the basement floor is going to be 4 inches above the bottom of the basement wall. So again, I can copy that. I'm just going to copy it up 4 inches. So I'll just type 4 inches. And then I'm going to unlock it and I'm going to drag it out because it's starting to get messy here. And notice how Revit shows me that dashed line there, which says that it lines up directly with that above. And I'll change that to basement floor. I'll just type FL because that makes sense to me. And I'm going to take this first floor and I'm going to bring it back down and I'm going to drag it all the way across. Whoops, it's still locked, so it's dragging everything. So I have to unlock it in order to drag it over. And I'm just going to drag it way over there for a second. Then I'm going to click on this guy, unlock it so that it doesn't drag anything else. And I'm going to put him over there. And then I'm going to come over here and drag this guy back so that it lines up. I'm looking for that. It snaps, it shows me, okay, so because I'm going to put all my floor levels here on the outside. So again, unlock, I'll drag until I see that dashed line, there it is. Okay, so now I've got my basement floor, my first floor, and my second floor are all out here in one column. And let's see, maybe I should bring this down a little bit to clean it up. And maybe just grab this guy and drag him down just a tad. Might be confusing. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, there we go. So that's the beginning of our levels. Now let's double check to make sure that we're okay. I happen to put some dimensions in here. So let's double check our dimensions before we go any farther, just to make sure that we have this correctly aligned. So from the bottom of the basement wall to the top of the basement wall should be 9 foot 10 inches. So I'm clicking on my dimension here, to here is 9 foot 10 inches. Yep, okay, so that's good. And then to the first floor, it should be 1 foot 1.5, and it is. And then to the top of the first floor wall, it should be 10 foot 0 and 5/8, and it is. And to the second floor, that should be a foot, and it is. And then up to here should be 8 foot 0 and 5/8, and it is. So notice every time I clicked on an object, Revit put a dimension line to it, but now I want to place the dimension line. So I don't want to click on an object. I'm looking for a place to click, and I'll do that right there. Okay, so I got those dimensions in there. And now let's double check. From the first floor down to the grade, supposed to be 2 feet, so we'll measure that. First floor to grade, 2 feet. I'm clicking nowhere because no, let's go down to the bottom of the garage footing. Okay, so now we got 3 foot 6 and 2 foot 0. Looks good. I'm going to just change the scale of this, so maybe it'll be a little clearer for you. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. Everything looks good. What about the distance from the from the first floor to the top of the basement wall? That's the last one we want to double check. Boom. Whoops. And to there, it's 1 foot 1.5. Okay, everything looks good. I like that. Should go over and save it. It's always a good idea to save your work. And then you'll notice that the last thing is that for ease of identification, I've changed some of the levels, colors. So I'm going to change the level of the grade. So we click on the grade, and then we right click with our mouse, and we say override graphics in view, over to by element, and then we can simply change the color. So I'll pick a nice green here instead of, maybe that's a little bit too green. It's a little bit too dark, maybe. It's questionable. It's really hard to differentiate that. So I'm going to change that again to a different. I'll click on the object, override graphics in view by element. And I don't like that green. I'm going to go up a little bit higher to a greener green so that when I look at it, I can really tell. Okay, now you can see that that's really green. All right. Then I want my basement floor. I've selected that. I'm going to hold the control key down on the keyboard, and that will allow me to select other objects. So now I've selected these 3 objects. I'm going to right click on top and say override graphics in view by element. I've selected 3 elements, and I'll just make those red and say, okay. Now this is not necessary. It just makes it easier for me. So if I see a red line, a red level in my work, I know that that's a floor line. If I see a green, I know that that's a grade. And then the rest of them, if I can't see them in the drawing, I can still hover over top of them and it'll pop up and tell me what it is. Revit will tell me that by just hovering over, not clicking. Or I could click on it, but then go down and take a look in the properties. What the heck is the level? But again, if you're getting paid by the hour, that's the way to do it. Click on the object and then go look at it if you want to find out what the level is. But if you just hover over it, Revit will tell you as well, and that's a little bit quicker. And if you save a half a second here and a half a second there and a second here, over the course of this class or over the course of a year or whatever, those little moments add up and start to become, minutes, and then they become hours, and then that starts to become really inefficient. So unless you're getting paid by the hour, you want to be as efficient as possible. And if you are being paid by the hour, then the hourly wage is going to go up based upon one of the things is how accurate your work is, but also how quickly you get it done. So the more efficient you are, the more likely your hourly wage is going to increase. But this is a class on Revit, not on how offices are operated and run. So anyway, this is the idea of what we want to have. You can see that. This guy is from another drawing, so I'm simply going to close it down now. And if you want to change that, this is my template. Yeah, okay. I didn't really make any changes over there, but I'll save it anyway. So that's going to go away. And then we'll just have this guy right here to work on. So as I said, I will make a PDF so that you can actually look at the PDF or watch the video tutorial, or you can do it in class with me. I'll walk you through it, of course. Or you can do all 3 or any combination of any of those, but it's very important that we get our levels in correctly because Revit is a three-dimensional program. And in AutoCAD, you draw a line from one point to another, and that's fine. But in Revit, the line that you draw has a depth to it as well. And Revit wants to know where does that object start and where does it finish? So if we're putting in a wall, we might want it to start at the first floor and go up to the top of the first floor. So we have these levels in here that we can tell Revit that's where we want the top and the bottom of the wall to be. And other objects will be, it's a good habit to make sure that you associate all of your, as much of your model with these levels as possible. And so that's why we start out drawing the levels to begin with.